Welcome to Midlife Matters, where we celebrate women's wisdom and wit. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and I'm delighted to introduce today's guest, Michele Spence. Michele is a CPA, and she is a partner in the Tax and Business Services Group at Marcum LLP in New Haven. Welcome, Michele.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And you've been a partner in two accounting firms. One moved into the other, as I understand it. You've had a 30-plus year career.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. And
Thank you.
how did you identify this path for yourself?
Well, it wasn't something that came naturally. When I was in high school, I thought I wanted to be a chemist. So when I went to college, I went for biology and chemistry, but I didn't do well, and I was lost. And someone that I knew said, if you love math, why don't you take an accounting class?
Mm-hmm.
And no one in my family was an accountant. You know, my father was a teacher. My mom worked at Sikorsky. There were just no accountants. So I said, okay, I'll try it. And I loved it. I loved the fact that, you know, the numbers made sense. It was challenging. And that's how I really started. And when I graduated, I was lucky enough to have a job offer in 1988. And I took the first job offer that I got. And that's where I met some really influential people. Mm-hmm. I had two great mentors that I wanted to be just like them. And they pushed me and they guided me to be a partner by the age of 30. So it was something that I wasn't looking for, mm-hmm. but it just came to me, and mm-hmm. I was very fortunate.
It does seem like there's kind of a guiding hand with someone first suggesting accounting.
Right.
And you finding that, and it sounds like throughout your college career you continued in that path.
Yes.
And then being lucky, taking the first job, which, you know, doesn't always work out, probably not usually something that people stay with or find the right people that are going to help them grow. And then to find not one but two people that
right.
were so encouraging.
Yes. Yes.
It seems like fate.
It was I was very lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got along great.
Mm-hmm.
We created a wonderful partnership, and to this day I'm still partners with one of them.
Okay.
So it says something about that influence, and I highly recommend to any young people out there to try to associate yourself with someone or some people that are inspiring, mm-hmm. and that believe in you. And if you have that opportunity, seize it and stay with it. And that's what I did. I really focused and I stayed, and I didn't leave where I was because of an increase in compensation.
Right.
It was more about working with people that I really loved, mm-hmm. and also the clients. Being in public accounting, you're constantly dealing with different personalities, different people, families, business owners, and you get to know them at every level, and you get to know their employees. You become part of their family, mm-hmm. so you feel this connection, and that's what I love about public accounting. There's never a dull moment.
And for people who are not aware of accounting as a field, could you describe what public accounting is as compared to other types of accounting?
Sure. Public accounting means that you're doing work for businesses, individuals, governments, anywhere from doing tax work to auditing, forensic work, valuation work. We do it all, mm-hmm. for clients, as opposed to working in industry. So, for example, if you decided to work for the IRS, mm-hmm. that's a government industry. You're working for them, and you're auditing clients. Or if you wanted to work at, a large company like in, Apple or Microsoft, you're working within that culture, and you're doing basically the same thing over and over again. Mm-hmm. In public accounting, there's a huge variety, which is what I love. Mm-hmm. So you're learning something new, you're technically challenged, and you're dealing with people. And then, as businesses grow, they sell, mm-hmm. then you get new owners, then you get new family members. So you're constantly evolving.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And I looked up a little bit about what is it like to become a partner, and one of the things Google told me was it is described as exhausting and mentally challenging over many years of sustained work.
True.
True. Okay, so you agree with that. And where did your encouragement come from? Because it sounds like that's an arduous path.
Yes. I believe that my strength to do this comes from a few key people in my life. My parents were very hardworking people, and my father had two jobs. He was a teacher and he taught at night. My mother worked part-time, and very good role models to follow. And I always knew that working hard would pay off. I still believe that. I don't think anything is a 9-to-5 job. I think you have to put in the work. Becoming a partner just meant accelerating what I was already doing. I was getting there quicker. I was just emphasizing what I already believed in, which was I wanted to be in control. I wanted to create my own client base and create my own success. I did have a lot of help from my husband. He was super supportive. He had a full-time job, and when we decided we wanted to have a family, he gave up his job to stay home with the kids so that I could pursue my career as a partner. My schedule is so unpredictable that, he just made it easier for me, which if you have that opportunity and you have that support system, you should take it. And a lot of times families can't do that. So you have to figure out what the balance is. If you're both working, then you have to decide who's doing what. So there isn't this constant battle. And, fortunately, I didn't have that. So I was able to really grow my career and not feel the stress at home that I was feeling at the office.
Well, that's a very interesting example for people to contemplate. So these people helped you, these two mentors, they saw something in you that they said, you can succeed at this. What traits do you think they identified about you?
I think that they knew that I was hardworking, that I was conscientious, reliable, responsible. I was the first one in, last one to leave. I truly cared about my clients, and I communicated well. So if a client called or emailed, they always got a response right away. I learned to, read clients. Like if a client was very meticulous, I knew I had to be that way. So I think these mentors really knew I had the traits to do what they were doing, and they supported me. And they just said, if you want it, you can have it.
And you, as a partner, are responsible for both managing and growing the business.
Correct.
And so how do you help others grow the business?
That's very tricky, because developing a client base takes a lot of effort. So you're not only servicing your existing clients, but you're trying to cultivate new business, new relationships. I've been fortunate, again, to work with some wonderful referral sources. I have some great financial advisors that I work with. They're similar in my style, so I'll refer work to them, they refer work to me, and the culture is similar. I work with some fantastic attorneys. That's a great source. So over the years, you have to develop these relationships, and you have to reciprocate. And I think that's important. So bringing in new business, it's definitely challenging, because you're trying to do your workload and everything else. And sometimes your partner may say, you know what, I can't handle this client, but Michele can take you, and then, we develop a relationship that way.
Okay. And what about your professional associations? Like, what role does that play?
So being a CPA in Connecticut, we have the Connecticut Society of CPAs, and we also have a national group, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. Our local Connecticut chapter is very good for networking with other CPAs. We have some great continuing education, and I think that for young professionals, it's important that you join those organizations and maybe join a committee and be involved and get to know other CPAs in Connecticut.
In terms of you talk about the relationship building. Do you see changes in the new workforce coming up as far
Yes.
as the inclination? I mean, it seems to me people are somewhat, COVID aside, tethered to their devices and not maybe having the social skills needed.
Yes, I definitely see a change. I think COVID brought, for one thing, people were more excited about working from home and not having to come in the office every day and have somebody looking over their shoulder. In my office in New Haven, we have promoted a culture where we want people to come back to the office. It's not that they can't work from home. It's just that we want them to be involved, to meet their peers, to have a socialization. It's really important. But we are flexible. So as employers now, in the last 5 or 10 years, we have learned to be more flexible. If someone has a long commute, they may be more efficient and effective working from home 2 or 3 days a week versus coming to the office and being distracted, because there's talking and there's catching up with people, and sometimes it affects their productivity. I've noticed that the culture is more attached to their cell phones, and it's not that you do it in private anymore. You put your cell phone right out there and text and make calls and things, and it can be distracting and affects your work product. So we do talk to people when it becomes a problem.
I just saw something that came through my news feed on my cell phone that talked about some of the big firms, maybe some of the big eights or well-known firms, are running classes for young people about how to be successful at work, basically, trying to instill work habits,
Etiquette.
So talk a little bit about that, what you see.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I think that a lot of young people just don't know any better. They don't know what it's like to work in an office. And it's not something that your parents can teach you necessarily. So I think that the workforce has now come up with some self-help classes where we'll talk about going out to lunch with a client, what to order, don't order a drink, and to use your napkin and to make conversation without chewing. And also just about being in the workplace in an office where the person next to you is trying to concentrate, but you may be doing something distracting that you're not aware of. So it's more like, be aware of your surroundings, try to look professional, act professional, don't take anything for granted. So that's what really we try to encourage with the younger people. So I totally support any sort of soft skills that are given to younger people these days. And it is something like the phone. Put the phone aside. You can take a break, you can go in the hallway or go downstairs, make a call, but don't have that cell phone right there. It is something we notice.
Do you find that younger people, entry level, are kind of resistant, think it's old-fashioned, or
No, I think they actually welcome the feedback.
Okay.
Like I said, they just don't know. When we have social events at the office, we always tell people, just be careful, don't overdrink, circulate, talk to people, be professional, be careful what you say, that type of thing. And they're just like, oh, I didn't know. So I think it's important to just be open with young people.
And I would imagine being a good conversationalist, like meeting people and, circulating, isn't an inborn talent that everyone possesses.
Right.
And someone may be more comfortable working with the numbers or facts as opposed to those types of skills. And
Right.
I guess having a mentor in that situation is particularly helpful.
It is. When I used to go to events and I didn't know anyone, I would bring a friend, a mentor, someone else who's used to networking in the room. And I have one particular banker. She was wonderful, and she knew everyone. And she would just introduce me to all her contacts. So I think that's important. If you can find someone at the event that knows people, stand with them.
Okay.
But because it's very difficult to make conversation and to break into a group that's already started something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Breaking the ice. And
Breaking the
so
ice.
are business cards still capital that people work with, assets in terms of sharing, or how do they exchange information?
Well, there are some people that still hand out their business cards.
Mm-hmm.
I still have them. And a lot of times it's just sharing their contact
Yeah.
by their phone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. But we still use business cards.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
And you've talked about your situation where you were able to enter into motherhood, marriage with a very supportive spouse who took on a role that's not traditional, I would say. And so, have you been sought after, in the way of for advice about young women who are poised on wanting to start a family and yet are very ambitious and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of young women in my office now that have gotten married recently and thinking about starting a family and wondering how everything's going to get done. And so myself and a few other women in the office are trying to lead by example, to tell them that here's our path. This is what worked for us. And give them the encouragement that they need so they know they don't have to do everything themselves. They can hire cleaning people to clean their house. They can hire somebody or they can call Peapod for groceries. It's more about the quality of time they spend with their family, and they don't have to necessarily be the mother of the year. It's just balancing it, and understanding with your spouse. And if you don't have a spouse, your other support system. What you need from them. If you need them to come over on a Saturday morning so that you can get some work done, that's what you have to ask for. You have to be able to ask for help. That's important. And also, if you're asked to do a lot of things because you're good at it, you have to learn to say no. You have to say, I'm really sorry, but I have a full plate right now and I won't be able to do it. I like to do things 100% when I do it, and this isn't something that I can work in right now.
So boundaries.
Boundaries. Very important. Yes.
And so, as you've observed, this is a show for women. Younger women or people starting out in their career, entering into marriage or not, children, etc. Is it typical that people are able to sustain that path, or do you see kind of different kind of groupings as to what the choices are?
That's a good question. So what I've seen is, especially for women, we will have that path where we might get to a manager level, then start a family, and then kind of hold back a little bit from the next promotion because the kids are the priority. And then, like maybe in a few years, then they say, I'm ready for the next level.
Okay.
And they go to director or to partner. But I do see sometimes with women that they will take a step back and not be full force. But it all depends.
Right.
It all depends. But, I work with some fantastic women who they worked part-time in the beginning of their careers when the children were little, and then they're full-time now, and it worked for them. So you have to do what works for you so that you're happy, that you have something other than work and family in your life that, is important to you. But it is hard. And I would say in the beginning years when you have a young family, you're pulled in all different directions. And it's important to make time for yourself and with your spouse and your children, one-on-one.
When I was in corporate life, we call that the mommy track, where women would kind of just kind of go to the side a little bit, the shift, right? That's one way to respond to the multiple demands.
Yes.
Yeah. In terms of your accounting field, what are the skills and expertise and natural abilities that are most highly valued and are success factors?
Well, you definitely have to have the technical skills to do the tax, accounting, auditing work, and you have to keep up with that. So that is a major, item to have. In addition, you have to be able to communicate. You have to be responsive. I think that a lot of young people don't have enough of the written skills. Like when they're writing an email to a client, we do a lot of emails now. It's not as much calling; it's more emailing.
Okay.
They have to use the proper language and grammar and spelling, and you can't start out an email, "Hey Jim, how are you?" No, it's "Dear Jim" or "Hello Jim" or "Good morning Jim." So it's more, technical is important, but also the basic, language, communication, being responsible and reliable, and just, being the person that the bosses notice. So if a boss says, we're going to start this fundraising event and we need someone to be in charge of it, I think that people should volunteer. Get your face in there. Go and say, I want to do that. If there's a social event at the office, or maybe there's some new people that are hired, take them out. Be that leader, be that front person. Hey, let's go see Michele. She knows exactly, what to do, where to go, and then introduce them to other people. So I think that if I were starting out again, and I did do this, but I think it's important to just make sure that everyone in the organization knows each other. Don't just walk by someone in the hallway, say hello, I'm Michele Spence, and then, get to know them outside of work too.
And so what types of outside of work activities tend to fit well with the accounting field? I mean, you talked about
We have fun.
networking events. Yeah.
Yeah, we did an axe throwing event where our department went and did that. It was a lot of fun. We're going on a pedal boat cruise in Milford. As a group, we're just going to get some food and we're going to hang out and do this boat ride. So it's just about creating that bond, and we all like each other. So I think it's important to do that within your group. And you may not want to go with 30 people, but you may want to go with 3 or 4 people.
Okay.
If there's a Super Bowl event, have a party, and just invite a few people over. So we try to mix it up at our office so that we do this team building event. But it's fun. So I definitely encourage anybody starting in any field, wherever you are in your organization, ask what they do for fun outside of work. And if there's nothing going on, start something.
So initiative sounds like it's a big part of
Yes.
being a success factor.
I think so.
Successful person.
I think so.
Absolutely. Taking
Yeah.
that first step.
Taking
and
that first step.
raising the hand and. Okay.
I think so. I definitely think if that's the path you want to go on, that's great. And if you'd rather be behind the scenes and be the follower, that's okay too.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine.
Okay. And you've done some community work. You've been on some boards. Do you want to share a little bit about
Sure.
that?
So, as you develop in your career and you get to know different people, you're asked to volunteer on certain boards. And because of my background, I'm asked to be on either, a audit committee or a finance committee. And I've been able to work with the Agency on Aging in New Haven, actually North Haven now, for a number of years. And it's really rewarding. And it's something that you need to do and give back. So I enjoy that. But unfortunately, with my time issues, I'm only allowed at this point to be on one board.
Okay.
But I do try to volunteer wherever I can on any fundraising events, things like that.
Great. Looking ahead, I know you shared with me you had some ideas of what you might like to do post-partner. Do you want to,
Sure.
I believe financial literacy, which I saw is becoming a requirement in some high schools. I was
Good.
very pleased about that.
That's exactly what I want to see. I would
Okay.
like to see a personal finance mandatory class for juniors and seniors in high school. I think the curriculum should be such that they know, when they get their payroll, what all the deductions are for and why they're there. And then, should we buy a car? Should we lease a car? Should we rent? Should we buy? How much do we need to save in order to buy a house that costs a certain amount? How to write a check? How to obtain a credit card? I mean, these are all things that, we've done and we take for granted, but the younger people have no idea. They use Venmo. They don't know how to write a check. And, when they want something, they just go on their iPhone and order it. And there's other ways of doing things. So I think that a basic finance class is truly important to our juniors and seniors in high school. And you have to make it mandatory.
Well, you might be a part of that.
I hope so.
Okay. And as we age, we can reflect, look back on our journey, our decisions. And what advice would you give yourself, your younger selves, like 25, 40, whatever, strikes you?
I would just say, I have no regrets on my path. in my life. The only thing I would have done maybe differently was to try to specialize in something within the accounting field. I'm sort of a generalist, so I might have picked a particular industry and focused on that rather than being in a bunch of industries. That would be one thing. And then in my 40s, I probably would have been a little more hands-on with my kids than I was able to be. But again, my husband was there to support me, so I didn't have to be as involved in it, and it worked out. It worked out for us. But those are the only two things that I would say I might consider changing.
Okay.
My path.
And do you have a favorite quote or mantra?
Well, I always say to people, treat people the way you want to be treated. I think everybody in your company, your office, your home should be treated with respect. And if you're talking to, the security guard at the front desk or the owner of the building, you need to speak in a way that is respectful and appreciative and just not be so, oh, I can't talk to that person. So I really think it's important that that we treat people the same way we want to be treated. And if there's someone that needs help, I think that, you need to step up and try. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work out. So I always say try.
And there's some risk taking in there. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Michele, this has been terrific. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And please tune in to hear other fascinating women in future segments of Midlife Matters. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host. Thank you for joining us.